Okay, we should be good. Hopefully, this time. Good morning, everyone. It's a lovely 6 a.m. where I am, and on a nice Monday, public holiday actually, so everyone's nice and asleep. So I have about an hour before my family wakes up and we can chat a little. So, first, um, before I forget, if I sound very sleepy, it's because I am. Because I just got up and tried to set up everything, and of course, everything kind of starts to break. Like it starts streaming and then says there's no streaming on YouTube. So I don't know why I had to reset a couple of times. Anyway, first I'd like to thank everyone who's been supporting me. It's been very fantastic having a group of people to chat to and interact with as well. And the support, of course, has made a huge amount of difference to being able to do these videos and do reviews in general. Uh, and so it looks like I'll be able to do quite a few more. And some of my recent videos have been quite successful, so that's good. So for that, my current supporters are all, I printed out all their names and put them in little bits of paper in a basket. And today, this month, sorry for last month, I didn't do a draw, but this month I have out of my cupboard it's an old thing. It's a V-Motor Vamp Versa. Now this was an amp designed by V-Motor to go with their headphones because at the time, this was back in kind of iPhone 5 days, or iPhone 4 and iPhone 5 kind of days. The output of those phones wasn't too fantastic, so they designed a little DAC amp thing where you could kind of see it in the picture. You could get a separate like a frame which would screw on, and that would you put your phone in that, which is kind of if you need to get your phone out in a hurry, you couldn't, but you could make phone calls and stuff still. And but otherwise you could just strap stuff on there where it had little pads on there. But it's not a bad actual little DAC amp. It actually has an interesting feature where you can go from an iPhone or iDevice to optical output, which is a unique thing. It had optical digital output, and works with my iPhone 10 of all things. So if you have a standard, it's Apple compatible. So if you have a standard dock thing, then it will work or it work. I don't know about Android, so don't ask me about that. But it works with computers too. Has a lot of buttons and switches. Actually, quite a cool device made by a company in Japan, who still makes the occasional thing, although they seem to be slowly, I don't know, disappearing. Anyway, that without further ado, I'll draw the name of the person. Um, okay, so that lucky person to win a Vamp Versa, should they choose to accept it, is, let's have a look. Who's this? Ilya. Ilya. Oh, that's someone I've spoken with recently. That's very cool. So, Ilya, if you're cool to own one of these, you are now the proud owner of a Vamp Versa. So, put your name with that so I don't forget. Stick that in there. Okay. So, that's the draw. Also, I'll be. What else is happening? My mind doesn't work at this time in the morning. So next, we had some questions, and I apologize, I didn't put them in the description this time. So I have to jump over to Discord to go and check those out. Where are we looking? Okay. Live stream Q&A. I have to jump back a bit because I didn't posted the announcement ages ago. Okay. Here were some interesting questions. First one from Kishore Patel, who wrote a couple of interesting interviews on my site. So if you haven't already and you're watching this, I do have a website, and seems that a lot of people don't know, and it's up in the corner there. It says here.reviews, and that's the website. And I think people must not realize that it actually is a website URL because it uses a fancy new domain name. But that is there, and it's got a lot of stuff on there. Stuff as well from Brucko, who's probably the guy with the best reputation in the whole of Headphone for his reviews. When I was back as a moderator and we had a reputation count thing going on, we didn't post it. The reputation thing was something you could only see if people gave you thumbs up. He had the most thumbs up of pretty much anyone other than, say, Jason Stoddard. So anyway, he's writing reviews on there too. You should check them out. He's got a different approach to what I do. So he has a few measurements in there. And it's a different approach, and he's reviewed some of the same things I have, so you can get a different impression of stuff that we both review. We both tend to review the same FIO stuff, so most of the time, so that's kind of interesting. Anyway, he asked me a question: have you ever been involved in the development of audio hardware? audiophile hardware or software, yeah, sort of. I did get sent prototype HD700s, Sennheiser HD700s, to comment on, and I remember commenting on them saying, they are very, very light headphones, and they came in a box that was vastly bigger and vastly heavier than they were, and I told them, why are you sending them in this stupidly large box? It's just a waste of shipping. I mean, what if you have to pay for shipping? It's really expensive. You're paying for shipping a box which you won't use, rather than these headphones. They would better off doing what companies like Odyssey just did with the Mobius, which is ship them in a hard case, and that at least makes them more useful there, rather than a big box with some cheap plasticky velvet in there, and not velvet, satin like stuff, and which has a lot of, it's you're never going to stick in the cupboard if anything. So that was, I remember that development in particular. Other stuff, occasionally I've been sent beta or development stuff, but not much. But not other than that, no. Stuff that's come have been maybe early issue versions of products with early firmware, and so sometimes I've given feedback and something needs to be fixed. But other than that, not actually officially. What else was there? I have to scroll down because the questions are kind of buried in a whole lot of discussion. I'm going to see if I can pronounce this name. Dystasia said, from your latest video review of the Modi Multibit, you mentioned that the USB input is powered by itself and not by the wall wart that it includes. Why would they not use the wall wart to power it? Why is Gen 5 USB needed to do this split? And just don't mind me, I'm just checking that the chat and everything is working, that the stream is still good. Yep. So, okay, the Modi Multibit, which is floating around behind me. So to have powered USB in a device, you have incoming power. What's the best way to describe this? So let's say you have, DAC is a good example. You might have components that which require 3.3 volts, and then you may have components that require 5 volts, and you might have components that require a higher voltage. So in a very basic device, the power goes in and then it's split off into different voltages. And the simple way to do that is to split it off in using just resistors or whatever or a small simple circuit to convert the voltage to whatever. Sharing those voltages means you can also, noise can jump between the components and other, it's the most basic way is the most inefficient way. The most efficient, simple way, but for sound quality, the least efficient way. When you have a big device, imagine one of the big audio GD DACs, the power comes in, it's split among a number of transformers, which then again it's split into towards a number of individual power regulators. And so each of those provides a voltage. It's like an entire power supply for every different voltage. And then again on the higher end DACs, you'd have for each individual section that requires, so you might have a power supply just for the FPGA, then a power supply for some other digital circuit components, and a power supply, multiple power supplies, maybe one power supply for each analog channel, half of each analog channel if it's balanced. So the positive side of the output of a balanced signal might have its own power supply, and the negative, and etc. Basically, it's all split off as much as possible so that each can't interfere with the other, and the result is, of course, better sound quality. So the problem is, I guess, in these tiny chassis that the Modi Multibit and that use, is that there just isn't enough space to have a dedicated power supply, and also it's cost. You have more components, more complexity, more stuff to debug, and so to do that out of one wall wart, the simplest thing to make it cheaper and simpler is to have it bus powered. So if the person wants to upgrade from that level, they can upgrade by buying something like a Shit Audio Weird, or someone said the Eater does a better job, and probably some other USB gear will do a good job too. I just kind of experimentally plugged in the Modi Multibit to a nice streamer behind me. So I think it's just mainly cost and keeping the cost down because obviously the chips are very expensive, and that's why it's $250, not say 150. Uh, and of course, yeah, and to fit it into that chassis, and yeah, I think it's a cost thing mainly. And if they, in a way, I don't think this is the case with the Modi multi bit, but kind of if you make it too good, then it kind of cannibalizes your more expensive components. I don't think Shit Audio do that so much. A lot of manufacturers do. If they make their inexpensive stuff too good, it kind of makes the more expensive components not good value. Um, Interestingly, Cord does make their cheaper stuff sometimes too good, and better value. So things like the Mojo came out after the Hugo, and it was almost as good as a Hugo. So it kind of killed. It was a quarter of the price of their flagship portable DAC, and so it was almost as good. But now, of course, then they came up with the Hugo 2, which is much better. So there is that factor that I don't think Shit Audio necessarily are doing that, but it's the Gen 5 USB is huge. The board is quite complex. It would take up half the chassis of a Modi multi-bit anyway, so it's kind of impossible to fit. Because as soon as you do anything like you isolate the USB input, then of course you have to have a power supply, and then it starts to get complex basically. That's a long answer to a short question. Guys aren't chatting, so it's kind of just checking the stream is actually working. Yes, this is the microphones that you mentioned. It is it's a Rode mic I picked up in Tokyo, and it works really nicely if I'm up close. I actually got another lavalier mic, but it's a bit noisier. I've got one which is XLR to try and test that. I'll answer the question that's in chat actually. There's a Z7 on my shelf. Have I tried the Z7 Mark II? Not yet. I don't know if I tried it in Tokyo. I can't remember. I should grab one and review one. The original Z7 I just bought when it was like brand new. I just went into the store and bought one of the first ones and reviewed it, which was at full retail. That's not something I'm going to do again, because if I bought everything at full retail that I was going to review, I would have no money. Which is kind of, Sony's a pain, because they're a big company. You can't just go. It's not like someone who runs a small company and call them up on the phone and say, hey, or email them, hey, can you send me over X for review? Oh yeah, sure, no problem. A big company just doesn't do that. If you're lucky, one of the engineers will just privately lend you stuff, which is basically what happened. An engineer asked one of his employees, can you just send this over and I'll send it back? And it was one of their demo stuff for shows, and that was bypassing their entire company to do that. So you can't do that with Sony in the normal sense about reviewing stuff, and that's why some of the companies, if I was in the US, it would be painfully easy to review some stuff. Over here in Japan, if the company's big enough and they have a local distributor, the local distributor has to lend it to me. And if I don't know the local distributor well, I kind of pain in the butt asking them. What's the new stuff coming out for reviews? FIO Q5 Mark II, FIO. Early in the morning, don't mind me. What's the super small one? M5, the $99 DAP, that's coming out. What else was there? Stuff that I've got sitting on my desk that's coming out for review. Ultimate is live when I'm long overdue for reviewing. Those are interesting. IMs. They've been sitting. I've been using them actually, so I should review them. And there was too much drama over them, so I kind of paused my review until the drama was over. What else is sitting around here? I've got more IMs in for review than I should count. Shozy CP, interesting, inexpensive IMs, which are really nice. Some new Shozy IMs, which I have to check if they're actually released yet. Ones which to replace the Zero, another $50 IMs. What else is sitting here? On my desk, there's just so much stuff here that I even have to think what to review next. It's just too overwhelming. So I actually have a list. One of them is the Shandling M2X, again overdue for a review, that I've got to start doing a review on. There's no particular reason I was slow on that. Had in mind to review it. Reviewing stuff, actually, the microphone you see is actually the desk review rig. Let's see if I can put it in frame. Let me just open up OBS so I can see where I am. Yep, okay. If I lift this up, you can actually see the glyph, which is bolted on via an adapter. So what I do, you can see for the reviews, is the microphone sits way back to where it is now. It's just forward because I'm doing this. And this sits out here. Well, this sits in a position. You had a mic holder. I actually did a funky thing with this adapter. This is not actually a mic holder. This is actually supposed to clamp onto something, but I've done a little bit of tricky with this small rig thing to make it more convenient to hold the mic. And then I put the phone in the glyph. Actually, it sits this way. And then just do it straight over the desk. It's a very convenient setup. And just this cheap kind of microphone arm. And that's how I do the stuff over the desk. And I actually spend the most tedious thing about that is cleaning the desk, because the slightest spot of dirt really shows up. And I took the mat downstairs and just wiped it down, because always. And I have a roll of inverted tape here, which I just keep going over the desk again and again and again because of the amount of dust and crap that ends up on there. Anyway, that's that rig. I'll just put that out of the way. All this stuff in the way, and have an iPad mounted here too. Just try and get that reasonably out of shot. Clang. I hope that didn't end up too loud. Sorry if my voice sounds terrible. It always does in this time of the morning. What else was there? What other questions do we have? There weren't so many today. Someone asked an interesting one that's got buried because they didn't highlight me. Somewhere? No. No other interesting questions. This month is kind of really quiet for questions. Oh well. Let's see. Oh, what's coming up? Stacks was the other one that's coming up. I have to just get the stuff sent over. I've just been slow. They're just ready to send over. The Stacks portables are the Shure KSC 1200 needs to be sent over. I need to contact Audio Technica about the AD5000X. Yes, I know, endlessly overdue. What else was there? I was trying to organize Focal. That's one of those international pain in the bum ones. So that was kind of annoying, because the distributor doesn't know me, and they were pissed off that. Because I'm not doing the review in Japanese. So, sorry if I'm trying to read the chat on a computer that's right in front of me. I set up another computer in front. It's supposed to be the iPad so I could see it in my face, but the iPad doesn't want to load it for some reason. I modified my HD800 by taking the grill off behind the driver and remove both dust covers in front of the driver. I think it sounds better. Ah, yes. There was the mod for the HD650 where you took off the little cap at the back, or HD6XX, and it's supposed to improve it. That was one of the mods. Of course, there's that compromise between having something to protect the driver versus having better sound, and there's always that compromise. The Sennheisers are a perfect example of that. With planers, it was a little bit different. If you took stuff off behind the drivers of planers, it tended to muck up the sound because they have to have some kind of stuff on the back to some degree. Have I heard the SR009 plus the SR007TA? Not for a long while. I did have a combination of the... which amp was it? The tube amp, the double tube amp with the SR009 here for a while, years ago, and I really liked that. But the SR009 sounds totally different if you have something like a T8000 or one. I would also guess one of the high-end DIY amps. And that's the sad thing about Stacks, is no one makes high-end DIY amps except people who are like crapping on manufacturers who manufacture stuff without consulting them first. They seem to feel like they own the world of Stacks, which is very sad. If you're going to buy an SR009, I recommend going for Endgame and getting the best amp you can, like in Blue Hawaii or some such. Blue Hawaii or T8000 or whatever. I haven't tried the Blue Hawaii combo with them. I almost bought a Blue Hawaii many years ago. I was on It was just taking too long at the time. They're faster to buy one now than it was before. I was waiting 3 years for it. I gave up, sold my deposit position to someone else, but which was kind of regrettable. But I would just honestly just buy a Blue Hawaii if you're gonna do it. Save up the money and do it properly. It's kind of yeah. But the SR009S would be my ideal end game if I could be bothered. But I decided that to have one pair of headphones that only works with one stupidly expensive amp and one stupidly expensive amp that only works with one stupidly expensive pair of headphones was not a good combination. Though it would have been good for maybe DAC reviews. In the end, I just went up and bought speakers. So question, I can't afford the Meze Imperium. What is the best open back headphone which can give me sound closer to the Imperium but R and Z1R? Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe the Z1R, hard to say. If you like a lot of bass, fair amount of bass, the Z1R, but don't remember trying the Z1R on the Hugo 2. Best open back headphone. Maybe try to find a second-hand pair of Imperiums, I suppose. Well, I mean, if you sold... I don't know if you could sell a Z1R for that much nowadays. Yeah, I'd see if you can find one, save up money and find one second-hand. I kind of think something comparable. Maybe the Mr. Speakers. Mr. Speakers, Ether, Flow. I should compare that, actually. I've got them sitting under my desk and I haven't listened to them for ages. Probably Mr. Speakers, it might be closest. Where is Utopia? Behind me. Is it visible? Oh, yeah. If I move, it's visible. Hold on, I have to think which direction I'm going. There we go. Utopias are here. Everything sort of moves around the desk as I listen. Actually, so that's why I've got Imperium stacked with the Mobius, which is just because I was doing stuff in the middle here. I should put these in the middle. There we have the Mobius. Actually, for a while, the Mobius was the headphones I used the most because I was watching mostly YouTube stuff. Nick, wireless headphones for mowing the lawn was a question. I answered that on Discord. I tend to think if you're going to buy wireless headphones, just go for the Sonys. But actually, there are a few, as I reviewed ages ago, these hanging on the back here. Excuse the weirdness. This is part of a scanner. Okay. Oh, they're not plugged in at the moment. Okay, so these I reviewed a long time ago. My voice sounds terrible. These were called the Feel. They're now called the Feel Canvas. They're called the Feel Diva for some reason. I don't know why. They've obviously changed the name for some reason. They were a Kickstarter project, and after they finished Kickstarter, actually, I got them through GearBest, said, you should check these out. I thought these are the most cheesy headphones ever. There's a video on this on YouTube of me talking about them. And actually, they were pretty good. I put them on outside in between two trees full of cicadas which I measured at 90 decibels of sound. They were outputting really loud. It's actually the same season. I should go out and do that again. I have a video of it. 90 dBs generated by cicadas. It was loud. And this actually you could still listen to music with these. I suspect there's probably now some OEM noise cancelling circuits which manufacturers are putting in headphones, which are actually decent. And these were actually, for an absolutely unknown brand, were actually pretty decent, apart from the cheesy name. If I had the mind to do so, I would consider trying. If I was the kind of person to do that, into manufacturing, create my own brand and sell something like these, because actually these are pretty decent for headphones, and they sound reasonably okay as far as noise cancelers go, and they're about $250, and yeah, they were. I'm guessing there must be others. They can't be the only manufacturer to use this circuit. I mean, in China, these things end up being, the general circuits end up being sold around. And I can't imagine this is the only manufacturer that uses this noise cancelling circuit. So there's got to be some decent noise cancelling stuff out there we just don't know about. I mean, there are all these random brands that come up. I mean, the trend nowadays is to you have an OEM manufacturer, original equipment manufacturer, who makes something like a pair of headphones, and then half a dozen other companies buy their headphones and rebrand them, and it's all over Amazon. It's not, I won't even begin with AliExpress or somewhere like that. You just see these random weird brand names you've never heard of, and they it demanded anything electronic, micro SD cards. I was just looking at all these weird brand names I've never heard of, and you don't know whether they're rebranding good quality stuff or stuff that's been, you know, SanDisk stuff, but manufactured kind of on the sly out of the same equipment. Oh, there's all sorts of weird stuff going on, and there must be some half decent stuff out there because um, I got a deal for a few people where I could get these at about $100 off, and I did a lot of that. Got a discount, and $150 are definitely worth it. You can't get them for less than $250 now. I can't get that kind of deal anymore. But it was an example of there's got to be stuff out there which is good. And the thing is, do I want to try and contact a whole bunch of manufacturers and sift through all this stuff and try and find who's making half decent headphones? And then do they have? Someone brought up with me a question: do you have when you're reviewing stuff from manufacturers, what about support? Because they'd had some support issues with the various companies. They asked, can I talk about support? Does the company have good support? And the answer is, I just don't know. It's luck of the draw. I mean, the big company obviously has to have some kind of decent customer support, but you always have someone who'll come out and complain that, oh, I got crap, the company gave me crap. And I know really great little companies, not to do with headphones, or even to do with headphones and IEMs, who have really excellent, are really good with their customers. And then you hear this horror story from them about, oh, I got treated like crap by the company. And it's like, how do I know that you aren't just a really crappy customer? Like, you just didn't make stupid demands, and you can never quite tell. And sometimes it's just, when you see complaints online about companies, it's the customer. So the thing is about going after all these little random brands is I just don't know if they're who the heck they are, and if they'll be able to support the product as well. So that's the whole noise cancelling thing is interesting. There's got to be a lot of stuff out there which is probably would be worth a really serious investigation. But again, it's kind of tricky. Any experience with the Mytech Brooklyn Bridge? No, I should try and. Actually, the owner of Mytech was in Tokyo, and I didn't introduce myself to him. He was actually in the middle of giving a presentation. I thought I'll come back and say hi, and then Tokyo being so overwhelming. If you think 5 floors of Can Jam, it's like that, and that I just didn't get around to it, which is really sad because it would be interesting to try it. I'm not really a big fan of the MQA thing though. I think it's a bit of a scam. So, but that's another matter. And so that's the only thing that puts me off about Mytech. But I'm sure, like everyone I've heard who've got own Mytech stuff, really likes it. So it would be interesting to try in the future. Let's see. I'm trying to read the chat here, and it's really small text on a computer that's sitting way over in front of the camera. And it's okay. We have no Blue Hawaii here in Israel. Well, you just have to order it directly. There's no Blue Hawaii. You can't buy them out of a shop. They're only available direct from Justin. So that's the situation. Have you ever put the headphone hobby on hiatus? Yeah, I bought speakers, so I listen to those mostly if I can. Depends on, like this time in the morning will be no good. Late in the evening if my kids have gone to bed, no good. But so, yeah, I just generally listen to speakers if I'm listening during the day. Let's see. I'm just going scrolling down all the messages. So I should indeed. Yes, okay. Is it true the Empyrean is less resolving compared to other top-of-the-line headphones? Absolutely not. People get confused because they're slightly darker sounding, people don't assume that they are getting less resolution. It's the two easiest things to be fooled by in audio. One is gain. So thinking that the gain settings are changing on most gear, say the gain settings are, this gain sounds better than that gain setting, or high gain sounds better than low gain. No, it's not. It's just increasing the volume because of equal loudness contours. Number two is conflating detail with brightness, or brightness with detail, I should say. So no, at least with the cable upgrade that I did, they are as resolving, or in the bass, I felt they were more resolving than the Utopias. And the Utopias have excellent bass, so to have something for me to improve on that was pretty good. Were pretty amazing. Um, so no, I think it's just a tone. It's a tuning thing, for sure. Because the first pair of kind of darker, warmer sounding high-end headphones to come out for a while that I can think of, and that can really confuse. And again, frequency can it you can experiment with this yourself. If you have a pair of, say, Utopias, just say drop down the treble till they sound really dull and it sounds like they're less detailed. So, but you can listen. It's easier to listen in the mid-range for detail, and because then you won't be less likely to be confused. But listen for small sounds rather than just whether it's bright or not. Do I think Sennheiser will come up with an update for the HD800S soon? Nope. Highly unlikely. They just cancelled the HD800. They stopped making them. Now it's only the S. But I have no idea what Sennheiser is doing. If they release stuff, then they will. But I don't think they're going to suddenly come out with a successor. They might come out with... I mean, the HD820s are their current new product in that range. I don't think they're going to suddenly change. But if they are going to come out with new stuff, maybe they are. And you just won't know until it appears, pretty much. Although they tend to sometimes get leaks through dealers, obviously. Would you take the FIO FH7 over Andromeda? I like my Androids, but they're so damn sensitive. Good question. I think, yeah, I'd have to think about that. The Andromedas I can somewhat tune to my liking. The FH7, I like the dynamic driver bass, so I might. But I think the Andromedas do better, possibly do better treble, whereas it's kind of a tricky one. I'd have to think about that. The sensitivity can be an issue. You can get an IFI IEM match to fix that, though. It's hard to say. I like the dynamic driver, so I like hybrids better. I'm starting to be more inclined to liking hybrid or pure dynamic driver IEMs, just because the bass is so much nicer. But it depends. I'd have to sit down and think and go through all my music. I should really do that comparison. But the other thing now is I have an original pair of Andromedas, and the newer ones are slightly different. They're slightly different tuning, so the comparison probably wouldn't be one worth doing, because it would not be comparing what you currently buy as a pair of Andromedas versus what I have. Planar IEMs are getting a lot of attention now. Yeah, they are. Maybe I should borrow a pair. Let's see who's around. Hi, Drunk Saru. We need more drunk people here. Maybe not. I need more coffee. We're still waiting for reviews on the Auralic Taurus. I've probably won't review it. I think I know the distributor here. I could borrow it, but it's just kind of not on my. It's not on my list of stuff to review. It's not a new. There's most interest in newer products, and Auralic Taurus has kind of been around for quite a long while. I might in the future, but there's a whole lot of interesting amps, like the Headamp GSX Mini. There's the 11 Audio stuff, which is really interesting. What else was there on my list? Other amps that are way more interesting than an Auralic Taurus right now. When I ordered my Mezzo Imperial, I referred to your YouTube channel. Does it help? Not sure what the question was there. Thank you. Sorry, the text is really small on the chat that's over here. Zen. Well, I'll just call you Zen. Thank you for the comment. Any chance we can get your take on the TT2? Yeah, I got to borrow. I know the distributor. I should borrow them. It's one of those things. I kind of don't like asking the local distributors, because I don't review in Japanese. They don't make any more profit from me reviewing stuff if that I borrow from them. But they're really nice. They probably would lend it to me. Which headphone gets you most head time? At the moment, it's actually probably the Mobius if I'm watching YouTube, honestly. other than that, like for listening to music between the Empyrean and the Utopias, I kind of switch from one to the other. Sometimes I like the Utopias more, sometimes I like the Empyrean more. So it's very, very varies. It depends on the kind of music. I think more acoustic music go with the Utopias, and more uh, kind of a wider variety, not just acoustic music, but a wider variety of stuff with the Empyreans. So, what are my thoughts on vinyl and record players? When I was a child, my father had a record player, a Torrens thing with an SME tone arm. Mark V, was it? I don't know, the kind of the pretty famous one. He had a nice vinyl setup. He didn't have a lot of vinyl though. I don't have the room for it here. I've sworn off ever getting interested in vinyl. It just would take up too much space and be too much hassle for me. So I've decided I'm not at all going to do it with vinyl. Vinyl's interesting. I'll tell you an interesting story. I went to a manufacturer's place once, a very interesting manufacturer actually. I may as well tell you who it is, Bakun. And the guy who runs that is like the proverbial mad scientist. And you go to you expect, like a factory kind of place. It's not. It's this place crammed floor to ceiling with electronics, and you can barely get inside there and move. Anyway, we went in there, and he showed me this crazy, I wish I'd taken a photo, crazy ass speaker setup where he had these dodecahedron speakers and all this, he'd modified turntables and all this kind of stuff. And we were trying out his digital to analog converter, the Japanese model, so you can't actually buy them, not really supposed to, I don't think you can buy them overseas, but anyway. We were listening with that for a while, and we're talking about USB, and I bought a USB converter and was going through all this stuff with him. Anyway, so then we switched to his vinyl rig, and it sounded so much nicer than the digital. And the thing about that is, so a good vinyl rig is just fantastic to listen with. I think it's like a non-oversampling DAC in that technically it's really crap. The dynamic range of vinyl is really low. The actual resolution of vinyl is actually technically really poor, but it's so nice to listen with. And for it was some jazz record we picked out was just really pleasant. And I guess it's one of those things. I think it's like maybe like smoking cigars. It's the whole act of doing the whole vinyl thing is so satisfying, and cleaning the record and getting, it's the gear factor as well. It's getting all of it out of it that you can, whereas digital is kind of easy and convenient. And so I think a lot of the factor of vinyl is the actual process of putting on the record and playing it. So that's my thought on vinyl. And I'm not going to get into it. It's just, I have, even with a house now, I just rented a space. I'm just trying to think, what can I get rid of? I'm constantly trying to clear stuff out, which is part of why I have the drawers for free stuff, is because I just had a cupboard and I stacked together all the stuff I have, which I just don't need anymore, which have been maybe given to me or whatever. And it's like, I got to get rid of this. So, just trying to work out where we're at. Well, thank you for the compliments on the channel. Can planers hit as hard as dynamic headphones? Well, planers are dynamic headphones, so yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, they're dynamic driver headphones. They're just the way the setup is with the driver is different, where you have kind of like having the voice coil embedded in the driver, and it still uses a magnet and a voice coil, but it's just the location. The voice coil and it isn't connected to the regular dynamic driver. It's just on the base of the driver rather than a planar magnetic. It's as part of the driver, so it's different. But it is a dynamic driver. Do I think the W7 Fireflies still deserve over $1,000 price tag? That's a good question. Now would I put it? Well, you see, the version I had the original DAC in it, and they changed the DAC to upgrade it. I always thought of it as the IKEA kind of DAC amp. I don't have a probably value-wise compared to cheaper DAC amps you can get nowadays, maybe it's not. A lot of stuff has come out since that was released, which is possibly better value. But I mean, it's if you want that particular funky, neat design and to sit on your desk, why not? So I think you are paying for this funky and neat design to a degree. Is it worth over $1,000? That's kind of be a good question. Be interesting to compare now because again, since I made that review, which was years ago, a lot of stuff has come out which is better value probably. I mean, this part of the satisfaction is having that really funky amp sitting on your desk, and with it has a really nice power supply you can buy for it too. Abyss, I need to get the Abyss headphones in. I need to organize that. I've been really slack about that. I don't know if I think if they have a local dealer, I'd probably have to go through a local distributor to organize that, but possibly. Yeah, I tried them at various meets, and I tried them out of a Woo Audio WA5 in Can Jam, and they were fantastic. They probably are, if you don't care about being big and heavy, they probably are some of the best headphones available nowadays. But yeah, I should really review a pair. It would be fantastic to add to the top of the line list. But $4,000, they should be. So I'm just trying to read really small text here across on a computer sitting right under the camera. Speed of Stacks SR009, fleshed out mids of the Utopias, space of the HD800, better than the Fostex TH900. Okay, Fostex TH900 isn't that resolving. The stacks are probably a step above the Utopias when I tried them. Nothing's going to quite give the space of the HD800s. It's a kind of overblown space. It makes everything sound big. So you won't get everything in a pair of headphones. There just nothing exists which can do that unless maybe Shangri-La. We won't go there. It's just $30,000. Yeah, you see where I'm going with that. But I only tried that really the Shangri-La with binaural, which was ridiculous. If you want to have an experience that makes everything sound ridiculously stupid. Maybe those new RAL headphones, RAL, that might be worth checking out because someone was saying that they just blow everything away for $3,000. I'm trying to organize reviewing those because now I have a speaker amp. They might be the ticket. But interesting thing, the Shangri-La, we tried at the Hi-Fi Man office in Tokyo, was interesting. We tried it with binaural and with a Chord Dave, and that you put on a binaural recording. It was like you were in the recording. I mean, oh yeah, that sounds. I can hear the music. No, you were there. It's like nothing else I've ever heard. That was just absolutely insane. Because the chord gear is the only thing I've listened to which presents the depth and width correctly, really, as if cleanly, of any DAC I've ever heard. And and then we've got binaural recordings, which were very, very pure recordings done on using a lot of very carefully arranged science on a dummy head. And Chesky, of course, who knows how to make good recordings. Unbelievable. You were in the recording. It was insane. So that was an interesting experience. And it kind of ruins you for headphones because then headphones sound like crap afterwards because you have that memory. Just try to read through your comments. I know of several brands only available in Japan you can't get at in other countries. Everything about reviewing those types of products instead of products you see elsewhere. Yes and no. Yes, because it would be interesting. No, because I don't think anyone would care. You would, obviously, but most people would see this, and I've reviewed obscure stuff. I'll give you an example. Let's jump over to my channel thing. So there is unfortunately, there is a factor that I have to consider. Essentially, productivity right now of reviewing stuff that is going to get attention, which is the regrettable factor, is that I'd like to review everything under the sun, and if I just did, it would not be so, it would not get so much attention. Okay, here's a difference. Hollow Azure headphone amp, which hardly anyone has heard of. Everyone's heard of the Kitsune tuned edition, or the Hollow Spring 2 DAC. So the Hollow Spring 2 DAC, where was that? Oh, actually, that didn't get that much attention. 3,000 something views. Hollow Azure, 2,000 views. And then I do a Shit Audio's Moddy Multibit, 9,000 views. And Hollow Spring 2, okay, which I put up on July 4. Since then, 3,000 views. Hollow Azure Amp, July 7, 2,000 views. And Moddy Multibit, July 16, in other words, a few days ago, 9,000 views. So, I mean, do you see where I'm going with that? It's the problem I'm running into, which really sucks, is that and this is why, like someone asked about the Auralic Taurus, it's been around for so long. I'm not sure why. I don't think it would attract that much attention. Whereas if I'm going to have to admit it, if Theo comes out with a new product and they send it to me, that's going to get 30,000 views, as did the good old M11, which is now up to 30,000 views. So there's a productivity factor in that. It has to be something, if I choose stuff, it has to be something that is interesting to me and is interesting to other people. So this is why I don't want to do all the Chinese IMs. A million people on YouTube who have started up their own channel and are reviewing $50 IMs or whatever, anything the Chinese manufacturers will send them. And I really, really do not want to do that. Very occasionally, I will review stuff that's interesting, like the Shozi, because I obviously know one of the people who's working for them, and he's a good guy, and I appreciate the attitude of the company and that kind of thing. And I've got some SimGot, which is IEMs, which are floating around here somewhere, which the company was new, but what they're doing is interesting, and I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. And no one else seems to have hardly anyone else seems to have reviewed them. So there is that kind of factor where, yeah, it's kind of a thing where also there's stuff which I have here which I'm slow reviewing. I said I'd do an Yggdrasil Analog 2 review, for example, and I haven't done that. Yeah, it's tricky. It's partly, there's a mix of stuff going on there, but yeah. Where are we at? What is the best DAC amp match for the Empyrean you have tried? Oh, Hugo 2. That's easy. I haven't tried the TT2 yet. Or a Dave. It probably would be excellent on those too. When will you get your Wall of Fame? I don't want to do a Wall of Fame. I think once a year I'll do best of. I'll do a best of video, a best of stuff during the year. But yeah, I can't do a Wall of Fame without having a huge amount of stuff here, because, for example, someone has said, I haven't reviewed the Abyss headphones. I should. But how would I judge a Wall of Fame? I'd have to be my own preferences. I don't want to elevate stuff. The other thing is, I see it's tricky. I don't have enough stuff here. I haven't reviewed enough stuff to feel like I could do a Wall of Fame. Are the drapes on the window new? No, it's just the pull. Originally, when I had to get curtains for the room, it happened by chance. My father-in-law had 2 pull-down blinds which fit double windows, and these things cost him a lot of money. The pull-down blinds are relatively cheap if you have small windows. If you have big windows, they get exponentially more expensive. And he had 2, and I thought, let's try them instead of curtains, and it worked out to be excellent, because then when the sun starts coming down, because the sun sinks, this is towards the west, you can just pull them down and block the sun. Although now I have a thing I hang over. Actually, I have hooks outside, and I hang a thing over the window so I could let light in, but block the sun because it gets really hot in the summertime. But no, I just do that because it's actually was not bright outside, and I've got light shining in my face. I don't want to shine heaps of light out the window. Okay, so this is interesting. I've heard for years there are no point in good DACs because music is recorded with garbage equipment using cheap op amps. This year I looked it up. Most good pro equipment uses discrete op amps. That sounds like a manufacturer pitch, actually. I wouldn't care about op amps versus discrete op amps. It's hard to say. It's all implementation, and a lot of it. If a gear uses, op amps or discrete circuits or whatever, I wouldn't get into that. It's not so simple as that. One of the most generic op amps out there, the OPA 2134, actually measures pretty well. I mean, it makes the equipment tend to sound very dull if used in most generic circuits. But yeah, I don't think it's as simple as that when manufacturing electronics. There's equipment that uses op amps that's fantastic sounding. There's equipment that uses discrete setups, which is maybe average, but you just can't. It's not like that. It's more to do with many other factors in the design. It's probably the biggest thing that mucks up recordings, I would say, is the mastering process where they run it through a whole bunch of equipment which distorts it. Or running it through a compressor, over compressing it. But I mean, a lot of the music I liked was run through a compressor. Obviously, it's been brick walled, but not overdone, so it's distorted. I'm gonna have to go off soon. But anyway, I can hear on my equipment now how kind of how good the recording is, but I wouldn't overthink it. I think there are worse things out there. I think, there's a problem with having high-end gear that a lot of the music I like, I could happily listen to on what people generically call mid-fi. And there's just not enough resolution in there to really justify having $3,000 headphones or, a $2,500 DAC or something like that. So I could say my system is for that music which is really worth that gear, but a lot of the music I listen to I'd be fine listening out of, what should we say, the Sonys, maybe. So something worth considering. So I can kind of sympathize with that whole thing about, it's all just, it isn't worth it. And people say, it's all not worth it. I can understand that logic. Let's see. I'm running FLAC to my Metrum DAC over USB. Is there really an improvement with a network streamer or USB cleaner? It depends. When I had a Metrum DAC, it was an older one where there was a huge benefit. It can be. So it depends. There can be. It might be worth trying, or seeing if you can borrow one. Streamer, I think they tend to have really good implementations for, at least the one I have here does, for SPDIF out or AES output or whatever, and that can be a great benefit. And it's a step up over the USB to SPDIF converters I use, so it's still a step up. And so it can be, but it's law of diminishing returns kicks in extremely hard. You're going from, say, $600 up to $3,000 or more for a tiny bit of an improvement. At least so far, that's been my experience. Do I think the 009 plus T8000 is worth upgrading 009 to the new? The 009S is a different beast compared to the 009. It's very much more in your face. I like it, but I don't know if it's. I'm not going to give worth upgrading. It's something you'd have to go and listen to first and trying. Have I listened to any ZMF headphones? Yes, I have it in Tokyo. It sounded interesting. I've already talked to Zach. That we'll talk about later. So there should be something coming in for review at some point. Have you ever tried Odyssey LCD-X? I have an original pair of LCD-Xs. Very original, as in before they were sold to anyone. And one driver is blown. So they've actually been way overdue sending them back to get that fixed. But actually, I'd like to try it. The driver, the way they've made the drivers has changed dramatically since. So it'd be interesting to try now. My thoughts on the Verum 1. Did you see I did a review of those recently, so you can see my thoughts there. It should be in just on my channel page. It should be in one of the videos in one of the various playlists. You can see if you scroll down. You'll see them very clearly because I took a nice picture. Do I use EQ much? I use EQ mainly for testing, like where if I find something I don't like in headphones, finding what I don't like. Like, is there too much 4 kilohertz presence? Is the treble too bright? Or is there not enough mid bass or something like that? I tend to don't use EQ for listening because the gear I have is super sensitive to changes in the digital. It's very noticeable. But I can hear the degradation too easily. But what I'd like to try is the shit audio. Is it Locky? Am I thinking right? The one where you can actually turn the knobs. I'd like to try that actually. I should get around to contacting them. But mainly for testing. I don't use EQ as such myself. Where are we at? Can you really drive a HE1000 SE by a phone? It's possible if you listen quietly to do so. Check out I have a headphone power calculator on my site. If you play around with numbers in there, you notice something interesting. The amount of power you require goes up exponentially as volume increases, because for each 6 decibels of increase, you are doubling the amount of power required. Or doubling the volume, sorry, and so obviously the amount of power increases. So to say go from listening at 80 dBs to 100 dBs is like 10 times the amount of power, 10 times the amount of volume. 10 times the amount of... Yes, a 20 dB increase is about 10 times. So, because you're going doubles, 6, 12, 18, times 2 times 2 times 2. So 8 times plus a bit more, so almost 10 times. So the amount of power you require as volume increases dramatically, which is why I've always said the 2 critical things are when choosing gear is first, what music do you like, and second, how loud do you listen? Because there's a case of a guy who had HD800s and he was just plugging them into a phone, and everyone said, no, you're crazy, you need an amp. But he was only listening at 70 dBs, which is just above conversation level. And as a result, he didn't really need an amp because it wasn't going to make any difference at that level. But if you do turn up the volume where you get someone annoyingly always complains about Stax amps not being powerful enough, listens really loud to rock music. And of course, you tried that with the Stax, and then it's not going to work. So if you do turn the volume up and insist on damaging your hearing, you're going to need a more powerful amp. But it's kind of more complex than that. I explained on the headphone, at least basically on the headphone power, the calculator page. Again, check the site. It's on there. I think it should be one of the links on the front page. Monoprice monolith headphone amp. I haven't tried any Monoprice stuff yet. I watched the Holo videos and skipped most of the portable player reviews. Fair enough. Yeah, I've got a lot of people who seem to watch the portable stuff and a lot of people who watch the more expensive stuff. So yeah, I could do a whole lot of more I think I can do a lot more expensive stuff, and I'm interested in some of it for sure. So maybe I will. We'll see. Yeah, it tends to be a balance. Yeah, as I said before, it tends to be a balance, an issue with balance there about doing both. So I'll probably do, but the variety is good. If I get bored with doing high-end stuff, I can go back to doing portable and then cycle back to high-end stuff, and it keeps it interesting for me too. Let's just go down here. I'm going to stop in a minute because I'm getting absolutely screamingly hungry. The only thing I've done is drunk tea. Oh, every 3 months for the THX 789, more or less. Yeah, I've got one sitting here. Interesting amp. That'll come out in review at some point soon. Let's see what else. Have I looked into SOTM yet? I should. One of the things I should. Do you still have the HE1000? No. How do they compare to recent headphones? I still have memories of them being better than HD800s, but a tiny bit behind the Utopias. I still think they're, especially if you can pick them up way less than retail, they are really, really nice. Apparently, they put the HE1000 drivers into one of the other headphones, so you could. I wish that they. I think I said in one of my videos, I wish they put HE1000 drivers in the HEX chassis, the V2 chassis, and then sold them at 1500. They'd be absolutely kick-ass. So I think Hi-Fi essentially did that, but I can't remember which model it is. I'm not any headphones. I don't. Just people asking questions about which headphones should they get. I'm not going to answer that if I don't have the headphones here and haven't compared them. It's worth if you see the about page on here.reviews, and you can click on my name. You can see what stuff I've had here and what stuff I've reviewed. But it's kind of pointless asking me about headphones I haven't had here. So I'm going to go off now. A lot of questions here I can't really answer. I will answer one. Meze Rye Penta, they're out of stock, but otherwise they'd send me one. So to review. So that will come eventually. So other than that, thanks all for participating. And if you're feeling generous, I can also say leave a super chat as thanks. But also consider, if you're not already, become a supporter. So if you'd like my advice whenever you need, within reason, you can become a supporter for as little as $2 a month. And considering, God, how many thousands have I spent on gear? Join in and ask questions. And I'm giving away stuff. This morning I gave away, it's a bit old, but a Vamp Versa. And there's literally stuff sitting around here, which I'm just like, where's the box for this? But I'm usually fairly fanatic about keeping boxes. I have a stack in my cupboard which is this high, full of gear, which I need to get rid of. So if you'd like to be in the draw for some of that, consider joining up. What I will do, thank you very much, Vince, for sending me a couple of bucks my way. Much appreciated. This allows me to, because it's very interesting telling your family, why are you sitting up there all day listening to music if there's not getting anything for it, actually burning up a lot of electricity, because this stuff, when it's all on, uses up a lot of electricity, especially these lovely heat generators, which I then have to turn up the aircon to keep cool. What I will do, if I can jump into the chat, which means I'll just have to find the chat page on this one now. And it comes up with the chat page and then it doesn't show it. Oh no, here we go. There we go. It's very, very weird. YouTube is always very funny with me. What I will do, you have to give me a second. The people who are still hanging around, I should have prepared this before, is this will only last one day for people who are watching the video, but if anyone wants to join in, I have a Discord. And I invite a few people in. It's usually a private Discord, and I haven't made it public, but for every live stream, I invite people in, and people can join up and participate. And this link works for a day, so if you're watching this more than a day later, it's not going to work, but it's in the chat there. So if you'd like to join in and chat a bit, there we go. Otherwise, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for the interesting questions, and congratulations to Ilya, if I pronounce that correctly, nickname, for winning a V-Motor Vamp Versa this month. And some other things, of course, is, I'll just put in the chat my Patreon. Well, there's a link, amos.io/support, which is a short link. And if you'd like to become a supporter too, consider that. And so I'm going to be off for the day, and What if I clicked on the right stuff? Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all online for the next review.